Okay, thank you. Thanks, Simon. We have the normal legal disclosure. You have to read it, and there's questions at the end. So first of all, I just want to, again, welcome you all here. I think this is a great opportunity for us to share ideas and experiences, and we want to make this as interactive as possible. So there's going to be a Q&A session at the end, as Simon said, but also as if you've got questions, then please feel free to ask them. I want to start by giving a bit of context around IT at Intel. I'm not going to go into too much depth of it, but as you can see, we have 6,000 IT employees around the world, 143 sites overall. We're on 56 of those sites. Number of data centers, as you can see the detail there, and 114,000 clients of various descriptions, which tells us that some of our employees have more than one client. And that's going to increase over time as well. So we'll hear more about that. Where are we? So we're actually in EMEA, obviously, and the organization that works from here really supports the business across that whole EMEA geography. Huge. Many emerged sites, many different cultures, many different languages, all of which we need to comprehend when we're helping our customers work with their customers. So there's a lot happening there. The other thing as well I want to mention is that within our IT organization, we have our business analysts, but we also have some business analysts actually embedded in the business as well. We have this hybrid. I expect some of you have one or the other, or some of you may have both. But certainly it's important that you understand the context of which we're talking about here. The next slide really should be no surprise to anybody. Business is changing. But I think what's important here is not the fact that it's changing, and everyone knows it is, but it's the rate of that change, and the complexity of that change, and the implications the change has on the business. And there's many different versions or different environments that can be created. We don't just change, we're just not evolving from one to one to one anymore. It's one to many to many, many, many. There's lots of different versions of ways of contacting customers and working with customers. So social media is bringing many different ways of doing it. Also, our customers, and certainly our internal customers here at Intel, are very savvy. They really understand what technology can provide them, what can be done, what their customers are using, what they use at home, what their families are using. Our BAs really need to understand and get ahead of that to help our internal stakeholders map themselves to what's the right thing to do. There's many different things they want to do, but what's the things they actually need to do? And the BAs really need to get hold of that and to understand what the business requires to make them successful. It's a good example of that. We're actually deploying a CRM solution at the moment, and there's a couple of people here involved in it. It's based around a normal sort of system that provides us with CRM capabilities. We're not just going to be using that on our laptops, though. The field want to use it on their phones. They want to use it on their tablets. They want to be able to access certain things in certain ways. We need to be able to comprehend that and understand it, and to really to work on what their usage model is, what the user experience is going to be for that. And to do that requires not just the analysts doing their piece, it requires a much wider perspective from IT. To start with, though, to be able to understand what they want, we have to create good business partnerships. It's so important that the business and IT work together on things. We have a number of examples where we've done that well. In our supply line business, for instance, very good support from the business and from IT to make this work. It's so important, and it's been very successful. It's hard, it's difficult, it takes a long time, but it gets it done and it's successful. We have other examples where we haven't worked so well with the business, and it's been dreadful. It's been really hard to do. And IT can't just deliver the solution on its own. No longer can we just put a tool out there, throw it over the wall, and let the business get on with it. It's just not possible anymore. You have to be working closely with the business. We spend a lot of time doing that and aligning ourselves accordingly. So I mentioned that we're kind of here in the business solution space. looking at design, looking at manufacturing, supply chain, sales and marketing, the way our stakeholders touch their customers, and helping them be more efficient, more agile in the way they work. So that's where we're operating. But to be successful in doing that and bringing the right user experience, we really have to be thinking about all the other areas of IT. So the mobility, Windows, proactive management, cloud computing, all the different infrastructure activities that come together through the analyst to be able to deliver the right, or help the customer get to the right solution. I use this term quite a bit. I was with a customer today. You know, tools are not the answer. All tools do is allow you to screw up faster. It's getting the process right and understanding where the business is going, and really being on top of that with the customer, with the business, being in step with it, and then bringing solutions in that help it to be more effective. Finally, this is a saying that we use a lot, is that we are passionate about driving business value. This is all about bringing value to the business. And through innovation, sharing best practices with our industry peers, so with you guys. We're very dependent on having these interactions, so we're benefiting from your knowledge as well as hopefully you can benefit from what we know and the mistakes that we've made. So we've got a short video now, of which about 3 or 4 minutes, and I'll just wrap up and then pass you on to the main events.
The analyst community here in EMEA facilitates the development of analysts to become credible partners with our business stakeholders. We are a vibrant, inclusive community, inviting active participation and providing opportunities for professional growth. Our community is based around 5 focus areas. Communication. Our monthly newsletters, blog posts and regular face-to-face workshops connect the analysts to the community and each of the focus areas. Industry. Through events and industry networking sessions, we connect the community to external bodies, companies and industry best practices. Knowledge sharing. By leveraging proven practices across the community, we drive change to the analyst toolkit and skills through quarterly workshops and knowledge sharing sessions. Business acumen. We stay connected to our business stakeholders by inviting them into our community to provide Intel business, product and financial updates to broaden our acumen of Intel's operating environment and new technologies. Training and development. We organise, plan and deliver training courses for the community to help manage career development of both core competencies and soft skills.
So we put the analyst community together a few years ago now to really help the individuals within the analyst community as it was established to learn from each other. Over time, what they did was they started to really lift their game in terms of what they can provide and what they can learn and leverage off each other to help their businesses. It wasn't long though before they started to recognize that there's a lot of other activities going on outside of their own small organization. As that evolved, they started to look outwards into the industry, going on courses, attending seminars, and slowly and surely they built their knowledge around both their own experiences and also what they're learning from the external industries. Success is really around the way we're helping our customers be successful. So if I take where we came from, we were basically just doing what our customers asked us to do. They give us a list of requirements and we go and work to those requirements. So what I'm really looking for and what the analysts are trying to achieve is to be much more of a trusted advisor to the stakeholders. Not necessarily doing what they want, but delivering what's required to make their business successful, so what they need to make their business successful, and what the company is requiring of those businesses. Okay, so a couple of final things. We have some IT annual performance reports at the back. You're welcome to take away and have a look through. Give you an idea of what Intel does in its IT business and the sort of work it delivers. There's also some online resources as well and our open port. So if you go to communities.intel.com, you'll be able to find that. And, it's worth having a look through. And one final thought, and I found this the other day and I thought it was quite relevant. We struggle with this a little bit as well, and it's not something IT organizations are comfortable with. But, you know, IT get blamed a lot. You know, if your phone doesn't work, it must be IT's fault. But there's a lot of good things we do. And Forrester actually believes that we need to tell people about how good a job we do. That builds a confidence with our stakeholders to use us more and to listen to what we have to say. The analysts that we have in our organization are very talented people. They understand the business, they know what needs to be done, they understand the links between IT and the business, and they can bring that together. But they need to have the credibility to do that and to build the confidence with the customer. So we should be telling much more about what we do and how we do it. So that's my final slide. So with that, I'd like to pass you on to Tina and Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Thank you, John. My name is Tina Schuster. I'm a business analyst in John's organization, and I also chair the EMEA Analyst Community. Tonight, we are going to talk about our experience on the innovation journey. So how we used innovative thinking to address a problem that we had. We're not here to teach you about innovative techniques. We just want to share with you how we have succeeded with being innovative. I'm going to talk a bit about the problem statement that we were trying to address, give a very quick introduction into the Gator Brain. Joe is going to talk about our experience at the Innovation Days that we have been running, why it is so important, and key messages and a summary. Okay, the problem that we were trying to address. The team that Joe and I were in at the time had been working on small form factor applications, and we were regarded as being on the cutting edge of technology. However, over time, we felt that more and more of our team was working on enterprise solutions that by their nature took a longer time to implement. Even though they might be innovative, it just was a longer process. And we felt we had lost that cutting edge of being regarded by the customers as being innovative and as being able to deliver quick wins to our customers. So that's why we came up with the concept of Innovation Days, or trying to embed innovation into our team more. Okay, so what gets in the way of being innovative? Firstly is our day-to-day activities. When you have to test a story, when you have to deliver a requirement, it's just something that we don't do. And to speak with Stephen Covey on his 7 habits, the last habit he talks about is sharpening your saw. And the analogy that he uses is that a man goes into the forest and he sees another man sawing down a tree. And so the man asks the other man with a saw how long he's been sawing for. And the man goes, well, for hours. So the other man says, well, why don't you just take 5 minutes out in order to sharpen your saw? And the guy says, well, I'm too busy. And that's very much what we felt like when it came to innovation. Fear of failure. Everybody, we get rewarded for our successes, not for our failures. And I'm sure if by the end of the day I come to Chris and I say, Chris, I had 10 good ideas, but I didn't meet that deadline, I don't think he would be very impressed with what I had achieved during the day. Lack of process and guidance, especially as business analysts, we like to follow a process. We have the waterfall, agile, we know when in a project we have to provide certain deliverables. And with innovation, we just simply didn't know how to do it. Not thinking innovatively on a daily basis, and it's like speaking a foreign language. When I speak to my sister on the phone, she makes fun of me because I've forgotten most of my German words. So it's very simple. We don't do it daily. We don't know how to do it. So what gets in the way? We do. Oh, mental limbering exercise. I've got a couple of concepts here that I just want to run by you. The very first one is I would like to discuss with your neighbor if you would agree to a concept whereby you you rent cars to people who have lost their license for drink driving or speeding. So audience participation, 2 minutes. Discuss. Yeah. Okay, so who in the audience would approve a business idea that involves lending cars, renting cars to people who've lost their driving license for drink driving or speeding? Hands up, who wouldn't approve that idea? Yes, wouldn't approve. Okay, well done. You've got what is called a gator brain. Okay, hands up, who would actually rent cars to people who have got drink driving or speeding convictions? Well done, well done, well done for taming your gator brain. So this is a real concept. In Switzerland, and no, I'm not Swiss. In Switzerland, about 60,000 people lose their license on an annual basis for drink driving. And by law, they're restricted. They're able to drive cars up to 45 kilometers per hour or 28 miles per hour. And a gentleman had the idea of lending or renting these cars to people with their license suspended, but the cars are obviously limited to the speed limit. So he's making a mint out of that. Okay, real or bogus? How about rewarding good driving by giving the driver an apple and bad driving by giving the driver a lemon? Who thinks that's a bad idea? Well done. Who thinks it's a good idea? Thanks, Gareth. Thank you. Again, that is a real idea, and in the fruit growing area of Hungary, they had school children ride with traffic wardens, traffic police, and they gave good drivers an apple and a big smile, and bad drivers a sad smile, sad face, and a lemon, and the feeling that they've disappointed a child. So it worked. Last but not least, what about time saving? So you get here on time, you mix your orange juice and the coffee. Bad idea. Okay, so that is actually a bogus idea. But never mind, you know.
Look what it's done to her.
So when I was referring to gator brain, I'm going to explain the concept just right now. And I know Chris, who I've been talking to, he is in medical publishing, so please excuse my knowledge of anatomy. But this is a very simple diagram of your brain. The big part up here, that's the cerebrum, and that's the part of your brain that is responsible for logic, smarts, memory. So if you remember your name, your email address, and your telephone number, your cerebrum works. The limbic system is the part of the brain that is responsible for feelings. So if you feel sad, mad, glad, angry, that's the kind of emotions that get generated in that part of your brain. And when you feel yourself overriding a gut feeling, then that's when your cerebrum overrides your limbic system. The last part of your brain is your primitive brain, or reptilian or gator brain, which has only really one function, and that is to survive. So it's your part of your brain that is really only geared towards action, and that's the part of your brain that we share with reptilians, who really only have that part of their brain. So what they do is fight, flight, or freeze. So when they or we are faced with newness or change, that's the part of our brain that says, hang on, I don't want it. And what we need to do as humans, and especially as business analysts, is we need to overwrite our gut or primitive brain with a logic response by upshifting our response and taming our gator brain. There we go.
Thanks, Tina. So, in terms of our innovation journey that we've been on at Intel, has anybody got any thoughts on how we come up with good ideas? Anybody? Brainstorming. Yeah. And what does brainstorming do? That generates lots of ideas. So that is one of the key things about innovation, is to ensure that we're in a situation where we can generate lots and lots of ideas, because in order to find that one good idea, we need to have lots of them. So what I'm going to do now is just to give you some ideas and some techniques that we used on our innovation journey. I'm sure these are things that are familiar to you, but I just wanted to talk to you about a couple of techniques before telling you about how we use these within our innovation journeys at Intel. One of the first things that you have to do is get ready for innovation. You can't just walk into a room and go, hey, I've got loads of really good ideas. What we have to do is put ourselves in the space ready for innovation. And one way of doing that is doing some mental limbering up. Because, you know, your brain's just like the rest of us. We need to kind of keep it exercised, keep it busy, keep it active in order to work well. So one of our recommendations, and something that we did on our innovation days, was to do mental limbering up. So this isn't about having that business idea or that business challenge that we've really got to go and sort out right away. This is about taking away that fear of failure, giving people permission to come up with some really wacky ideas with some pretty crazy challenges. And that might be, how do you get a hippopotamus out of a bath? I don't know, let's brainstorm that. Let's see what ideas we can come up with. What would you do with 100,000 ping pong balls? Any ideas? Or how can you improve on something like, I don't know, a microphone or a pen or a pair of glasses? And the idea here is that you're not trying to come up with a solution, but you're just allowing people to let those ideas flow, which is really key to when you're holding an innovation session and facing a business challenge. Okay, so this is one of the techniques that we use on our innovation journey, and I'm sure as business analysts and other professionals, you've seen this storyboarding before and you've possibly used that technique. But the thing that's really important, that when you're coming together and talking about a business challenge, is for the whole group to really understand where you are today. Because it might be that everybody in that group who's come together to look at that business challenge doesn't really know what the problem is or understand the impacts of that problem. So everybody in the room has to understand where we are today. And then, I suppose strangely, or maybe not, you go straight to box 6 to think, right, okay, where are we going? What are we doing wrong today? And where do we need to be in order to get through this business challenge or move the business on in a direction so it becomes productive? And again, in the same way that you're getting the team together to understand where we are now, you really need a consensus and understanding on where we're going and where we need to be. So when you've got those two areas defined, we're not done, because we've got 4 other boxes to fill. So as you know, or if you've experienced storyboarding before, you brainstorm the milestones that you're going to face along the way. So what are the things that could happen? What are the things that could prevent us from moving to where we need to be or where the business needs to be? And as you're walking through these challenges, it may take some time to move from one box to the next. So it isn't necessarily a quick process, but it is worthwhile. And as we move through each box, you need to be able to identify what the barriers are along the way. And also, you may want to brainstorm, how do we actually get through those roadblocks? How do we get through those barriers in order for us to get to where we're going, where we need to be? So, okay, you may do one round of this, but that might not be enough, and you may need to visit the 4 boxes in between to come up, if you're finding you have new milestones or roadblocks that you've not thought about, or whether you have not been able to get through a roadblock for a number of different reasons. But it is a very effective process, and I'm sure you may have used that in the past. So another technique which is really, really useful, and again, it's a method of taming that gator brain. So, you know, we can all sit there and thinking, oh yes, my gator brain's tamed, I'm not going to go and react and shut down a good idea. But sometimes you need a process to help you through that. And this is what praise first or point is. And this is a technique that new and improved organisation kind of recommend in terms of addressing those ideas as they come up. So as those ideas are coming through when you've brainstormed and you get to the point where you're reviewing those ideas, what we need to do is look at the pluses. So what is it that's good about that idea? We don't shoot it down, we don't react negatively to it, we look at the positives. Then we look at the opportunities. So what might this enable, this idea? It may be able to take us forward to solve a business challenge. It may take us in a direction that our organisation didn't even think of. Only then do you look at what those issues are. So this is the point where we don't let our gator brain fly away and go crazy and shout down all the ideas that we've talked about. But really, what you're looking to do is phrase concerns as open questions. So, great idea, we've looked at the opportunities, but there is this issue that we have. And how do we look at resolving this issue in order for us to move forward to the solution? So when you've looked at those issues and phrased your questions as open questions, you then apply something called new thinking. So what you would do then is go through a whole load of idea generation to get those issues resolved. Okay? So that might seem quite a lengthy process. So a nice tip or recommendation here is if you certainly don't have time to make a point, at least have time for a pint, which I don't think is a bad idea, or even time for a pie, where you're certainly looking at the pluses and issues, but you certainly don't just step in with the issues straight away. Okay. So that's a little bit about the techniques that we use during our innovation journey. And now I want to share with you some of that innovation session that we had and subsequent innovation sessions that we've held here at Intel. So this is just an image that I'd like to share with you of our first innovation day that we did. So you'll notice that we're actually in this room. However, there's only probably about 8 or 10 people there. We sat around in a circle. There's no tables, no barriers in that room. You might even spot, I don't know whether you can spot it, but we've actually got a little green alligator sat there on a colleague's lap. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But this is where a colleague of ours brought a business challenge to the team. And you'll see here that we have some storyboarding in action. So we're looking at that challenge and we're looking at the pluses and the opportunities and also what the issues are and what barriers we need to get through. So in terms of our innovation journey, what worked for us? So as a team, when we got together and we brainstormed this idea, one of the first things that we did was being prepared. So not only did we come to the day with different ideas of business challenges we wanted to go and address, we also probably spent about a third of the day understanding innovation techniques, looking at the processes that can be applied for innovation, and also understanding that gator brain and that initial response when somebody comes up with an idea and it just feels a bit alien to us. So being prepared was a key thing for us. The storyboarding worked well, as you saw in the photograph. It's something that we actively used and certainly helped us to get through the barriers and the roadblocks that we faced. Within the team, we had a mix of skills. So even though we were only probably a team of about 8 to 10 people, there was a mix of perhaps more technical people, more business-focused people, and that really helped to look at that business challenge because people have different perspectives on how to go and solve that business challenge and have different inputs. Something that was really key is not having any distractions. So it goes back to Tina's point about, you know, taking yourself away or having those day-to-day activities that really, really impact on our innovative thoughts. So that's why we said, you know, no laptops, no mobiles at the event. We actually got a solution out of that Innovation Day, which was great. You know, Tina talked about the fear of failure, not coming up with any ideas or any solutions at the end of the day, but we actually did. So we felt that the process that we worked through really worked for us. We had excellent questions and ideas. So there was no kind of hierarchy in the room. Everybody was there to solve the business challenge. We were open for questions, open for those challenges, because we'd had the mental limb bring up, and the environment was such that we could say things and no idea was too wacky. We knew we wouldn't be shot down for our ideas. We increased the team business acumen because we were learning about a part of the business that was new for some people within the team. And also, I think the other thing that was a bit of an unexpected bonus really was that we had is the effect on team building. So we felt that we got to know each other much, much more as a team, and perhaps recognise some skills and experience that we hadn't realised colleagues had. And that spilled over in our day-to-day work, and that I think that was probably one of the most rewarding things out of that day, even though it was, I suppose, the objective was to get a solution. But I suppose the key thing was keeping that gator brain in check. And we had a little rubber green alligator that I showed you in the previous picture that we were quite willing to throw at people if they came up with a bad idea. And he was thrown around a couple of times, but that was probably about it. Okay. So I've talked about what worked for us in our innovation journey. However, you know, being an analyst, we always think of, well, okay, what could we improve? What could we perhaps do better for our next innovation session? So I think one of those things is about having a creative environment. You know, we had the room layout great. We didn't have any barriers with tables and so on. We were sat in circles. People were free to move around and use the space within the room if they needed to. But maybe something that you could improve on to allow forced connections to come through and people allowing people to generate more ideas is having things to play with. Even just, you know, a piece of card with some writing on it, and just looking at that and looking at a business challenge can actually generate some new ideas. So having some things to play with would be good, an improvement on the day. The other sort of suggestion was having the customer available. So on the day we had somebody who was able to represent the customer very well to understand the business challenge. But we often wonder what that challenge or what that solution would have looked like having the customer there, or even the customer working independently in a separate group, coming up with their own ideas and challenges. I think that would have been interesting to see what would have happened there. Certainly something that we would recommend is to spend more time on the roadblocks. So as you're going through your storyboarding, looking at what those roadblocks are and really considering what the issues are with them and what we need to do to overcome that issue, and to make sure, you know, hand out actions for people to go and take, or take responsibility for getting through the roadblock. Something that we would recommend as well is having one roadblock per flip chart. So really this is about being organised in terms of your innovation session. It's just not a crazy time, people sticking post-it notes up everywhere. You actually have a systematic approach that you follow and people understand, and to make sure that everything is well organised. And of course, we had to keep that gator brain in check, and we've got a little bell over there. So not only did we throw that alligator, but we also had a bell to ding as well when people were coming up with some negative responses. Okay.
So why we felt the Innovation Days worked was because we were taking people away from their day-to-day challenges and day-to-day work and actually helping them take the time out to sharpen their saws. We had them focus on a problem, like Joe said, no interruptions, no laptops. It also built on the principle that the whole is bigger than the sum of its parts. It fostered teamwork, understanding of each other's backgrounds and skills and experiences. It removed the fear of failure, or at least it shared the responsibility amongst everybody, and everybody bought into the point principle, so we knew that we wouldn't get shut down as soon as we mentioned an idea or came up with an idea, which leads us to a safe place to take risks. And then again, Joe mentioned it, it really spilled over into our day-to-day work. So the key messages are: keep your gator brain in check, realize when it is, make time to be innovative, and use your collective intelligence, and use the innovation techniques that are available to you on the web, anywhere you can find them. So why is taming your gator brain so important? John mentioned earlier that the rate of change in the business is ever growing, and as business analysts, we are chartered with coming up with solutions to their problems. If we don't recognize and tame our gator brain, we don't progress and we don't embrace change. So remember, how we come up with good ideas is we have lots of them. So everybody has got a role to play in upshifting from your gator brain to your executive brain. The last slide is acknowledgements, and I would like to acknowledge Matt and Alan for helping us with the Innovation Days, and New and Improved for the use of their terms. So thank you.